So what we're going to do is we're going to take your stock brakes, crappy single piston calipers, or if you have a Monte Carlo, you have dual piston calipers that are small like this, and upgrade it to the big dog GXP rotors and calipers and brake lines. So there's a 13-inch rotor, there's a measly 10-inch rotor, and then your dual piston. You can kind of see single piston. So let's get these parts put on the car and I'll explain while I'm doing it. So we'll start off. This is what your factory brake should look like. And what we're going to do first is disassemble this. So to start off, you're going to use a 15mm for your caliper bolts. And then you're going to use a, I think, 11mm. Yep, 11mm for your brake hose. And then you use a 12mm for right here to loosen that up. And then you also use a 10mm to loosen that up. That taken off. Took it off a little bit rough, but it's alright. We don't need it where we're going. And look down there, right here. That's the next bolt we loosen up. There's also one right here. Take that loose, and then that'll get our bracket off. And it's also a 15mm. Now you will use your factory bracket bolts because they're a little bit shorter than the GXP bolts. Pull the roller off. Now while you are doing this upgrade, if you need to, check your hubs, see if they're shot so you can get to them right while you're doing it. Or if your strut's bad, perfect timing to do it. Or also your outer tie rod. Or like the notorious control arms that fail, usually at this bolt right here. So just something to think about while you're tearing this apart to upgrade the brakes. So since these are brand new rotors, you need to get your whatever brand brake cleaner you like to use and do a quick. Now if your brake cleaner works, hit it to get all the residue off of it. Do the back side and then we'll mount it up. And if you look right here or right there, you see all that residue, and that's just from it sitting in the box. That's the oils. That's why we need to use brake cleaner to clean this off. Now once you throw your rotor on, you got to remember on the front of these, use a screw. So a screw like this, just to keep it so it doesn't wiggle. So one thing to think about is while you're putting your rotor on, make sure you find that hole. So your rotor lines up to it, so you don't have that issue when you're installing it. Well, I put the mounting bracket on and we'll continue. Now that the bracket's installed, you need to install your new brake clips and then choose whatever brand pads you want to do. For me, I did Oreillys brand, but ceramic, because I don't want brake dust, or I want little to no brake dust. I'll put the caliper on and then I'll show you how to do the brake line swap. So now that the caliper's on, all your bolts are tight except for your hose. You always need a flare nut wrench, and this one's gonna be 12 millimeter. So you just loosen that so it's hand tight. Here's the difference between the two lines. See how the stock one has a slight bend versus the new one has a really big bend. So that would explain why you need it. Plus this hose is just a tad longer. Okay, so we got rotor installed, we got the bolt installed, mounting bracket, new pad clips, new pads, caliper, all the hardware, and then see how that line is positioned to go up to the old bracket. So here's the LTZ wheel that I'm going to be using for this car. And then because this is an 18-inch wheel off of an Impala, I am actually using tire size 235 45 18s. And if you look close enough, no rubbing between the wheel and the rotor, and you see how there's gap. So this wheel fits with this setup. And I hope this was informative and helped you out to give you some guidance to upgrade your brakes. If it did, please like the video. It really does help because it tells me that you guys like the content and want to see more of it. And then subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you in the next one.